Yeah, that went great. um, yeah, so this machine actually has a, let's say, this issue. You see, so I'm streaming right now. This is full fence. Like, I cannot go any further, and it also has a cooling pod, and it's standing on a roof stand. So, let's say this machine might die soon, but until it's dead, let me just remove. Okay, it was a bit too loud, I think. Until it's dead, we'll see. Yes, that's fine. Better. Okay, so I think it should be fine now. 78. Yeah, when it goes over 100, basically Mac has the like full switch. So if you go over a specific temperature, it shuts down the graphic card, and it is using the graphic card now, as I can tell here, the NVIDIA GeForce, and it's because the OBS is taking the stuff there. So I'm hoping that this doesn't go over 90 degrees. There is no way I can spin more fans. This is the maximum fan I can do. So we'll see if this actually works. I will slowly launch things one by one and keep an eye on the temperature. Ooh, that doesn't sound good. So if it spikes, it's fine. But as soon as it goes over 100%, go lower. Here we go. Then that doesn't really work. So one of the things that I think I can do is, this guy is consuming about 11% of CPU according to it. I should be able to just go in settings and change the bitrate. The bitrate is set already to quite low, so I don't think that this will really help. Okay, so it seems like it's just spiking sometimes. And normally in a normal Mac, like the ones which is not that old as mine, it would just bring the fans, and then the fans would deal with the problem. But my Mac is a bit old, and it went through a couple of looked through many countries actually, and I think all the dust, beaches, and things eventually kicked it into the gut. So anyway, so back to what I was doing is talking about is when I look at just switch to camera for now. Oh, how do I switch? Okay, so when I looked at things like, actually I'm gonna show you some code. When I look at things like Redux, right? That's familiar library. You see crazy things. I just go to Safari, put Redux, and it's like 15 degrees spike. When I looked at library like Redux, and they tell me like, oh yeah, it's all very simple and cool. It is all very simple and cool, except no one is dealing with synchronous changes. Like, tell me one application which doesn't need to access an API, man, and they put it in advanced section. Like, yeah, but that's not really advanced. Like, every single application I know needs to access an API. React applications don't live in isolation. So it's cool in theory. In theory, synchronous, I like the way that it's written. Asynchronous Redux, however, is hell, in my opinion, because when you need to do asynchronous, you need to do all of this crap. Like, where's they eventually they're gonna show the final example, and then you need to have a reducer for every one of function. It's like, why am I writing so much code when I can just do a freaking fetch in my component? And oh yes, it's not 100% pure, but maybe it doesn't need to be pure in a way that Redux is forcing you to. So what I made a slight modification to that workflow, and the modification goes like this. And it's the same approach that Redux is using. So Redux, what you don't like, undefined is not assignable. Okay, you want children. Oh yeah, actually it is streaming. But instead of putting string, I'm gonna put specific task what I was doing, and connecting registration to user state. That thing is interesting. It kind of retroactively puts everything back. So it asks you what have you done instead of what are you going to do, which I find interesting because I always struggle with like this. What have you done? You need to pick a next task, and then work on it for 25 hours, but when it's retroactive, you know what you've done in the last 25 minutes. Anyway, while it's giving me this weird errors, I don't think this errors will prevent me from actually looking it up, so let me try to launch it and hopefully it does not crash my laptop. 86, 99. Oh, okay, so we're getting an error, and the error is here. When running this guy, it needs to have on user change. Okay, so this is where this guy comes in. So I have this thing called with user, and I'm gonna actually put it around here. And it might be a bit confusing, but this guy is I will show in a second how it works. It actually uses a function to receive its properties. It's called the render props. And let me just check my Reading Street chat actually is. I'm not entirely sure that anyone will. Yeah, already waiting for new messages. Yeah. So this render function has a specific signature, and it accepts a thing. And I will just create a own render, I guess, children, whatever, because it will really not like me. I'm gonna call this children or something, and I'm gonna move all of this inside my children. That was first try. Okay, so chicken and egg problem, right? Because this is actually a function, that's why. So this function will accept two things. It will accept the user, and it will accept on user change. And I will just pass it here, children. I'm probably need to call it something better. Expected 2 arguments, but oh yes, I just need to pass the function itself. Oops. So I might just call this something like render children, I guess. And I can actually make this, because we don't need to re-render this guy, so I can make it into a function right here, and I think it's something like that. Return and then I just do this. Yes, this is TypeScript complaining. So I will just say any here for now, so I can just make this work. This is not importing the right thing. Yeah, whatever. I'll finalize it automatically. So the problem I had is doesn't have much sense. Did I really name it like this? Oh yes, I did. Here we go. So here I can say, I think it was on user change or something like this. TypeScript's not helping in here. On user change, okay. So on user change, we want to pass this guy. Yeah, and we pass the user here. I'm not passing the user to the sidebar yet, but there's not much corresponding path on disk. I think this is bugged out because I have renamed it on the fly, and it's kind of now like I'm sure you might need to rerun me. So that does happen with Webpack, especially dev server. Uh-oh. No. Okay, I'm gonna put Safari as the default, because I've noticed Firefox is crazy about the consumption of. Yeah, just use Safari for this session. Firefox is a bit crazy about how much CPU it's using, so I'm just switching for Safari for the sake of making it a bit easier. Authenticate is 6. You see, I'm getting always these weird errors, and these errors primarily come from TypeScript. And I think this should be fixing it. Is not assignable. Props children is missing. So it, unlike React normal one, where you create all these prop types and then it gives you this warning somewhere here in the middle of 100 other logs, TypeScript actually enforces certain limitations. So, for example, I said that this authentication thing needs to know what to render here. So I specified, and this is not TypeScript thing, I have specified myself, that children is a required thing. And children in React means that I need to pass here something. And I have specified that I need to pass here something, so I'm just gonna add something there. I think it's main like this, from main. It's gonna resort all of this. And this is like, if only this is the one reason of TypeScript, to use TypeScript. I do not remember how many hours I spent in React when you import something and then you forget to do this, or you do it other way around. You see that this one is exporting default, for whatever reason I did this. And these small mistakes where in React they'll give you the most ridiculous errors. It will be like something like React create element is shallow not defined, and then you just sit there and look and like, what? Like, where's the error? I don't understand the line. It doesn't give you the line, nothing. Like, it's I can actually show you what's gonna happen if I, so I can try to ignore it. I think it's something like ts ignore. So I'm gonna ignore this, and we're gonna get React error, I believe. Okay, TypeScript doesn't let us ignore that easily. Maybe if I put it on the same line. Come on, TypeScript, ignore this, please. No, does not work. How do we tell it to... Oh, okay, I think if I just go to the top of the file and say... Nope. TS... I'm not sure how to disable this guy. TS... No check. There's one simple hack. I can rename this file to JSX. But I don't really want to. In React, if you have done any React, you have seen this error many times. It's super annoying error. It gives you like the most cryptic things. Am I able to just force it to like? It practically what it does something like this: export count main equals undefined. And this is TypeScript set US again, because it says, hey, I don't know what you're trying to do here because this is not a JSX element. So all this, like this one feature is why I'm actually initially went to TypeScript, because I don't remember how many times I had this problem with Babel. Like, CommonJS is great, except when it doesn't work like you want it to work. And then there's nothing validating it. And yes, there's flow and all the stuff you can set up, but I choose to set up TypeScript because it was easy and it works nicely in VS Code. So it helps us to say, hey, you need to use default export here. So I'm going to use default export. It's going to give us one more error, which is this guy wants some children here. Whatever. And there is one confusing thing about so we are running the task here for, it's not a test task, but this is kind of the weird thing. So it runs TypeScript, so we need to save it on a different file. It doesn't watch your test files, but it validates them because the TypeScript validator goes across everything. I probably can fix it. Okay, so what is this error? File name differs from already included, only in casing. What is this? Oh, yeah, shoot. Oopsie doopsie. Save. Oh, it's still called with user here. Let me just move this file. And I know, yes, in Linux, that's kind of stupid. Yeah. I guess. Oh, okay, I think it works now. Okay, cool. So there's this application kind of looks shit when it's small. Um, but here's the interesting part about the state in this application, and this is where Redux usually comes in, or whatever library that we'll use. This guy is a registration form. When you register, the sidebar needs to show you user avatar. And those two things are not related. The sidebar is there even if you're not logged in. It just shows this thing, and then it needs to show the avatar. So you kind of need to have something where you store that state. And the usual candidate would be Redux, Mobix, Flux, whatever the state management library that you prefer to use. I do find that with all of those, it might be not always necessary. And like there is simple solution in just React ecosystem. So I didn't necessarily invent the wheel here so I created two different components. One of them is with user, which goes and just grabs the user and puts it in the state. And when you try to change the user, so this is essentially a container for your user. This guy does not change the user themselves, however. So for that, and this is where it kind of starts getting like, why is it all over the place? And I was thinking about it actually, that maybe this should not be here, because right now what I do is I have the form container for registration form, and when the submit happens, it grabs the value, and then it's called it doesn't store the state, it just passes it up. And then it passes up in here, and then it passes up eventually to the user. So those three things, they go like left from right to left, this way. And yes, there's quite strange indirections here, because we're calling this on register, then this on registered actually calling on user change, and then on user change. On user change is calling the handle method, which is eventually assigning the thing. If we were using Redux, what we would do is, where's registration form container? So this guy would have something like a dispatch here, and we would just like do some, like, let's say even if we use register, because we can map dispatch to props, so it would be like props dot register, and then the register will accept the same things. However, here's the trick for the Redux. This register now will go, and reducer will figure out the state modification, and then somehow this state will go into this sidebar thing, which I haven't put the state yet, and it will go into the main form too. Somehow. I mean, somehow through the... Where's my main... Oh, here. I just call it index. And to this guy, right? And yes, you're putting you're putting a function, so it's not magical. You're putting a function map state to props, and it grabs the stuff from the state and it puts it inside the props. But it's all kind of this loosely coupled stuff, and it throws it there, and then this map state to props somehow gets it and puts it in here. And I find it very tricky to think about, and I've seen, as we teach Redux to students, almost every student gets lost in it. Like, doesn't matter how much material we give to them, like extra things, it still gets into the point where when they start implementing certain things, it goes like, oh, and does this and this and this. When it comes to async, when it's sync, it's relatively easy to understand. But when it starts getting async, that's when it all goes crazy, because you have 3 actions and they're all throwing all this crap everywhere. And yeah, it's like, here it's explicit. It's maybe a bit more code, but it's very explicit. And each component here is responsible for specific things. So for example, this guy only holds the user. This guy just handles the if user is logged in, show the registration form. Otherwise, show whatever to show there. It is kind of, this one I wasn't sure that I want to implement, because yes, it's kind of weird component which does this weird thing. I can do the if condition inside my app essentially. Like here, I can just put an if statement and say if user is logged in, render the registration form, like something like this. If actually I might be able to do it. If oh yes, I need to. So one neat thing with Redux, React, with TypeScript, I wasn't sure what there is that it actually will give you autocomplete for certain things when you use JSX properly. And hello, if user dot, okay, when it works. Yeah, here it works. I'm not sure why it doesn't work inside JSX here. Probably you should not really be using. So what we can do is this: user logged in, and then we render. So if user is logged in, we render the main. Or otherwise, user is not logged in. And I need the double thingy here. Is we render the what's called the registration form, and so the registration form has this thing that we need to pass through it, which I think, oh yeah, we need to require it first. That's one thing I find a bit confusing about the when we require registration form, I need to still require it manually because it could not find it for whatever reason. And it keeps not liking that I haven't amphibialized. So I think it's just a default export. Yep. The registration form, it will actually tell you what is the required components. So we need to put on registered, which is on user change. So this looks really weird and to be honest, to me looks really shit. So here's where I would say, yes, you can use that or that, but if at the end of the day, these guys are functions. So if they are simple functions, what I can do is I can just do this. I can, let me just make sure that it works first. So I'm going to remove authenticate from here, and I'm going to just save this guy. Yeah, whatever. It likes to give you all these errors. And where's my app? Okay, so the app seems to be working still. So what I can do is I can import this library, and I think I can do the same with Lodash. I'm not really a fan of Lodash. I usually use Ramda because of Lodash. The way that it does the parameters is like completely. Oh, what is this functional programming guide for Lodash now? This is interesting. I have never seen this before. Oh, wow. Nice. Really nice. So, sounds like Lodash might have something interesting for us. Let me just require Lodash in my docsets. Oh, I have Lodash there. Cool. So Lodash if else if I don't think it has sign blah 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 conditional. I think that's the one. It definitely went so here. Locks the current first to return truth to the predicate function. So if it, wow, this is really hard to read, but okay. Oh, so this is Ramda version of this. Now you tell me which one is easier to read. So we do if else, and then we say what's the thing, and then we just do that. So I think that's a bit easier. So I'm just gonna stick to the weapon that I know, because I'm using already too many things. And ramd.ds is an alternative too, to be honest. Eventually, when yarn stop yarning and killing my CPU, exit. What's going on? Don't kill me, OBS. Oh, Visual Studio is going crazy for whatever reason. That's why it's like, hey, I should be using something lighter, yeah? Close others. Yes. I'm just gonna disable some extensions because I think some of these guys might be going crazy. Disable. Docker don't need. Disable. Okay. Yes, this one I use all the time. This one I've never used actually. I'm just going to remove it. Light server, no debug. This one doesn't work anyway. Too many of those guys. I'm going to choose one, the popular one. And yeah, whatever, I'm using Volume anyway. Man, lots of stuff. Okay. Thanks, Indonesian thing. Okay, so I'm just gonna reload this, hopefully. CPU doesn't go insane. It went insane for a second. Go back. Here we go. It's fun to use my computer. You like literally don't know what's gonna happen because as soon as it goes over 105, it will shut down. So it's almost like a video game. So there is like no wonder I'm streaming this on Twitch. Yeah. So what is going on? Why is no? It's OBS just going crazy. Just wondering, is it streaming? Yeah, seems to be fine. Okay, so when we import Lambda, what we can do now, import if else from Lambda. And I think that it should be fine. It will do all this crap. So what we can do now is this, a very simple thing, error, if, don't need the error, if else, and the TypeScript, oops. I think I need to install the types here. There's the types lambda. It's a bit confusing thing about TypeScript is that sometimes you need to install the types manually, sometimes they're part of the package. And I guess it will depend on the library author if they're like, okay, I want to do that. And okay, eventually, now it will do this thingy. Ooh, progress bar running away. What's going on? That's the weirdest progress bar. I like it. Oh, apparently Stephen King was involved here. So, if else, now it tells me what's going on. Now it gives me all this like nice, okay, so this is a function that should return a boolean. And if I give it like a true here, it will actually tell me like, hey, this is not, so first you need to pass the 3 arguments, but you actually need to give it something which returns a function. And I can actually do this, is logged in, which will grab the property from whatever object. And then I can say main, if I want to use JSX here. And then here I can say registration form stuff with on registered and on user change here. I might need to make them functions, I think. Argument of type elements and stuff, yeah, and this needs to be a function. Yeah, this guy needs to be a function too. I think I actually can call it, there is a function called always, which practically means always return this, and the same goes for this guy. Up, up, up. And I'm going to require the prop thing here, so I don't need to do r dot. I'm not entirely sure that that looks better, to be honest. I don't know, main render. Main render. Whoop. One of the things it doesn't actually yet get the user, so what we can give it now is the user, and now it's going to render proper thing. So if we look again in, that should work exactly the same way. Reloading. Reloading. Line 15 identifier was expected. Oh yes, I forgot the that thing. Okay, so that still works, and if I type my name, I need to give some crazy password. I have this special password saved, and that did not work. Why didn't it work? Okay, so we're getting, oh, email has, seriously? It does work, I think. I'm not getting unprocessed entity anymore. If I actually look in the network request, then this worked. So I'm getting the token. But it did not call on user change. And that is a good question, why? Because it's supposed to have called this, which then supposed to have called set state, which then supposed to have changed the state of the user. So this is part of shit I'm using Safari, where I don't like, because I don't think, unless someone cannot correct me, there is a way to get the freaking state on this guy. Safari, React state, don't need this. Yeah, whatever. Okay. Might need to open this in Firefox. I just don't like the Firefox. Yeah, whatever, quit. Because my CPU is gonna spin like crazy. But I do need to set this default browser, because if I don't, it's gonna switch between two different browsers, which is even worse. So that's the part which I find, especially when you're not using Redux, and that's kind of why they did it in the first place, is that it's freaking hard to understand what's going on sometimes. So my user here is not logged in. Oh yeah, that's kind of the problem, is when I assign this user, I forgot to set is logged in state, so I need to pass it to my test. So it renders whatever is passed into render function, and let's just check that. It's this, yeah, it is renders this, but this is not what I'm testing here. It I'm not sure what I'm testing here, so let's check. So I'm rendering the user, then I'm making sure that, oh yeah, it passes changed user to render func. So let's just check this. That I want here to say, I want to do this. So if user is logged in, I want to use iUser, give me my autocomplete. From interfaces, I guess. Is logged in. And then I'm gonna return, I don't know, logged in. And otherwise, I'm gonna return, and I'm gonna put a name here. And otherwise, I'm gonna return register. It doesn't like, oh yeah, because it's not a name, it's, I'm gonna put the name there, and I need to add it to my users thing. Because I do need, I don't need to know the username to be honest, but it would be good to have it, so I'm gonna add it to my interface. Name and email, I guess, I want to definitely store. Password, not so much. Okay, so, oh yeah, it's a reachable code here. And again, I can use error if else there, but this is test, so I think it's going to be fine here. So it should contain mic, but it also should contain, oops. Wait, if it contains mic, how the heck does it work? Oh yeah, my test is not running. I'm looking for the green thing. Where's this green thing? So now it's going to go crazy. Hopefully, it's 102. Don't go crazy, 103, okay. Back to 84. So expect register to contain value mic, and it didn't. It says register, which means it didn't really work. So now I can go and I say with user t6 should make it. Besides doing this, we're gonna first make it logged in. I think is logged in is true. Oh shit! I have my own user interface here, so I'd better not get myself confused with different interfaces. Oh man, what did I call it? Is logged in, yeah. Oh yeah, I'm missing the name property there. Actually, all this name and email is not. Yeah, I'm gonna put these guys inside the data because this is optional anyway. And inside this guy, I'm not gonna check in there, whatever. And in here, I just need to change it to. And you see how it collides here? It's like, hey, there is no. I moved it to a different place, and it's helping me. It's like, hey, I don't know what you're trying to do there, but this thing is not there anymore. And as you can see, this also tells you that, hey, this guy might be undefined. Just make sure that it's not. And in my scenario, it is undefined. So I guess what I'm going to do here is this. In here, I'm going to put this through there. And then instead of doing the spread operator, I'm just going to chunk this inside the data. And it doesn't like my new state for whatever reason. The property data is not user is not assignable to type. It's not assignable to type. Property name is missing. What? It was like, you asked me for many things, but I'm not sure what's wrong there. Object is possibly undefined. Yes, it is possibly undefined. No, that's fine. That's why it gets like, oh shit, so what I can do is I can make it not undefined and then we need to pass it everywhere, but because all of those are required, it becomes this like a, or I can make it like a union type, which sometimes TypeScript does get in your way, like in this scenario, which I might should have not maybe used it. So let's just check and user data. Okay, you happy now? The TypeScript forces you into this, like you need to be really like on top of what you. Whoa. That is one crazy exception. So type property user and incompatible. Type is logged in, is not assignable to user. I'm not trying to assign it to user. I think I'm doing something wrong there. Oh yeah, shit. Because I have a state user which is logged in, and I'm trying to merge it with. This new fancy syntax always gets me. So I get this state user first, and then I put this guy is logged in to false, and the data is the user. And then this is my new state. But when I put the new state, I want to put it inside the user. It kind of sounds weird, but like this. Okay, now it works. So whatever, object assign rules. So now it's supposed to do what I think. Oh no, test of ending. Okay, expect string to register to contain mic. Okay, so user. Let's just check with this Quokka thing. So it's called it once, then the change happened, and nah. So it calls it once, and then it's logged in. Oh yeah, because I actually did put it false here. Here we go. Now it's working. So I was basically doing this without live streaming it, and I was like, I think I'm going crazy. Maybe someone finds it entertaining, so I'm just going to live stream this. Okay, so so what I can do is I can get rid of this whole authentication crap. However, if I'm really getting rid of authentication crap, I need to really add a test for this guy, and that's why it's like, yeah. But what I can do is a very simple thing. I can take this function and move it somewhere else, and I don't know, render main, I guess. And I can put it in a main. I don't know, main or render main or reg form. Looks weird, but. And for now, I'm just gonna do this. I'm gonna export this guy from my. So I want my main function to know about the registration form, and that's the only top level component that I have here. Oh shit, I cannot do it that easily on user change. Keep me on user change. It's gonna look very strange if I pass twice. Closures. Oops. Because I've replaced all of this essentially. I've always tested and I want to get rid of them. Because it kind of became way simpler. So I want to pass like a user here. But I don't want to create this function that sometimes like you need to pass it a user and you need to pass it on user change. Oh, I have just realized something. There is a function which passes both the user and on user change, and it's this guy. So if I compose, it's gonna get very rambda. Compose. Compose allows to create two essentially. So if I compose this guy, and now we get the user. Ooh. We get both of them there. So I get user and on user change. And on user change. Yeah. User. I can put any here, I think, if I want to. I'm just gonna say function, whatever. Just telling that it needs to be a function. So this guy, if I compose it, and this means this is gonna go run first, and then we run the rest of it, and that's why I kind of a problem is because the sidebar actually wants the user too. Oh, this is someone told me I need to learn about lenses. So, airlens property. So if I do view lens, then it just gives me, what is this ASOC thing? ASOC. Make a shell clone of an object, setting or overriding the specified property with a given value. Oh, this is really nice. Nice. That can easily replace my all of this magic. But let's leave this one for now. So what lenses allows us to do in theory is take a property. I'm going to try this in TypeScript. Import R from Lambda. So I'm just going to get everything. R.lens of, let's say, E is logged in. Actually, lens won't work in this scenario because I'm not getting past an object. I'm essentially getting past two parameters, and the only function when you're composing functions, the only functions which we can accept more than one parameter is the first function, and the rest of the functions we need to accept only one. And the question is, what does the heck this guy will return? Because let's say it doesn't need to have on user change there, but okay, I'm sliding into. I can feel that this is sliding into some bullshit. So I'm just gonna leave it like this. This is what MPG refers to as like, how did I use the lambda function the best? I'm just gonna write the test for this, whatever. I don't like writing the test for this guy, but shallow to import. It renders, I guess. I just want to check first that it renders. And then I just do the up thingy there. Import up from up. And it says React is not defined. Yes. Okay, so it does render, it doesn't die, which is good. And I can say it so I don't want to call this, I don't want to go through all of this crap trying to find this unregistered thing and then calling thing. I can do a simple thing here, which is not the best, but whatever works, is this render children right now is a public function. So I would just test this. And what am I working on? I think the same crap. So I'm just gonna call it renders main when user is logged in. Blah. Whoop. And I'm gonna comment out this. I'm actually gonna say always return I don't know, test, whatever. I just want to have something not main so that it fails. And this needs to have a comma. So shallow up const component equals component dot instance. What was the function called? Render children. Yes. And our instance is a method. It doesn't like something because it does not exist. Why would my function does not exist? Yes, it does exist. I can freaking see there. Component dot render. Render is a function. What about render children? Yeah, it's a public function. Why can't I call it? Oh, bloody hell. And even if I get the instance, oh, here we go. Where the fuck was it? So now it doesn't like, I think. It's giving me an error or something, I don't understand. No, it's giving me a type of. Oh, it doesn't. It's this guy. It's a TypeScript error actually. Because TypeScript doesn't know what this thing is, so I need to say as up. I think. Cannot find any. Yeah, here we go. Now it stops the stupid type checking there. It's supposed to do this, be able to type of up. Yeah, it should be able to figure it out, but when you call instance, guess if I do something like that, maybe? Well, you don't like. It is already imported. TypeScript is confused about something. Anyway, as any, we can call render children and it works. And then we expect the render thing. So we're gonna pass the user here. The user here is logged in. Oh, no more IntelliSense. Bloody hell. Component.find main. Oh, not main, registration form. Length to, is this expect crop to equal, nope, to equal 1. Okay, so it tells us that, haha, no, there was no registration form there. Actually, there's supposed to be. Oh yeah, const render result. So we're not checking that render anymore. We're checking the result. Find registration form. Shit, this guy. Can I think I can grab this result and render it. Shallow result. I think I've done something like this before. But the provided element is. But the provided element what? Thanks for the error, I cannot see it. Was object. Why would this be object? What does this render children return? So this console log here is looks like a div rendered. Yeah. Yeah, because when we're calling render children, it just returns to us the thingy. I'm not sure how to wrap this guy to be able to actually, because it returns. Yeah, this common wrapper, I think it seriously doesn't like me wrapping it in the up. Oh, I know why. We need to export this guy, I think. Because we're trying to do this hot thing here. Ha! Screw it. I can just create a new component, the thing. Yeah, so that's an interesting scenario, but kind of React does make it a bit fucking harder. Because I just want to check when I call this, I don't even need to use React, to be honest. I can literally just say new app, render children. What do you expect there? Expected 2 arguments but got 0. Yeah, that's wrong. Oh, it's talking about this one, I think. User logged in is false. Just function. Okay, now it's happy. Interesting. So what is this children thing? Can I shallow render this guy maybe somehow? Oh shit, that worked. I was not expecting it's gonna work like this. So we can search for registration form. Or we can search for H1. What the HTML looks like then? That doesn't look like a shallow render to me. That's oh, yeah, that's a HTML. Registration form. Okay, this is weird. So if I do first dot name it's already a div. So when it's rendering shallow, this guy, because it's already one level, it goes and renders the registration form, which is kind of sucks because I don't want it to be rendered. Well, if I don't want to be oh yeah, I know how to do it. I can just wrap it in a div. I know, weird, right? But let's look at this. If I now search for a registration form, I should be able to see one. And what's the name of the first element? It's a div. Oh yeah, this div. Yeah, but I want to understand what's the name. Children. Dot first. Dot name is another div, right? Because there's another div here. But why does it render the whole thing then? That's what I don't get. Let me search for sidebar. That one definitely should be there. Oh yeah, sidebar is there. So why this registration? Oh, because this is, yeah, I had this before. This guy, this name, it searches by display name, not the freaking name that I'm using here, which is my fault, to be honest. I should have called it container. But there is nothing in React which actually tells you this, so you're looking at it and not knowing what the heck is it doing. So maybe if I just render the children, registration form container, here we go. Let me just remove this and check. Oops. What the heck just happened? Why did I switch to this file? Oh my god. Okay, so if I remove this and I remove this, okay, it still works. Const, I don't know. Expect to have length of 1. It renders registration form, and it renders what's it called? Main when user is not logged in. Okay, so the main thing is main, and now it's running. And if I uncomment the line of the head there, then it should be passing, and it doesn't, because I forgot to change this. Nope, but it's still not enough. Apparently it doesn't work. Wonder why? Why don't you work? I'm just gonna try to HTML this. Yeah, main is freaking there. Is this because this main thing is not called main, it's just actually default function, so it actually needs to be function main? Oh, bloody hell, enzyme, seriously? Why don't you search by the proper thing? Like this name that I put here, I would expect this name to mean something, not be just like, and yes, I understand when I do the import, this thing is just a freaking alias, but this is really confusing when you look at this code and that other code, and it's like this small slight variation there which makes everything not work. I do wonder about one thing, however. If I do this, because I remember I've tried this before, so import main from main, and if I put main here, oh nice, that works better. I should have done that. And import reg from registration, and I can still call it registration form if I want, because it doesn't really matter what I'm calling it now. It's not depending on this magical string. Nice. Okay. Cool. So we now know that this shit works. And let's just check in the browser. Ah, shit! I'm trying to use compose, but not. I'm gonna get rid of this. La 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 la. It's loading really slow. What is that? Ensure that the file supply tsx, jsx. Okay, well, you died just for no reason. Yeah, I think my webpack is dead. Run task, start. Uh-oh. Uh-oh, 103, go down, 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 down. Yeah, Firefox goes a bit insane with its consumption. So if I type my email again, here was okay, and where's my magic password? Sign up. Yay! Okay, it works again. So I can get rid of all of this crap. Cleaning. So I can get rid of this. Let's check that I didn't miss anything. Yes, okay. Oops. Why did it jump somewhere? What happened there? Uh-oh. Oh, here we go. We're still good. I think we're still good. Oh yeah, this will not work anymore. So I'm not sure why I'm exporting an interface user here. I'm gonna get rid of that. And I'm actually not exporting. I'm gonna export the with user instead. I can export it as default as so there's a way to like do this. There's a way to do it in one line somehow, where you do like export default with user from, I think. Is it like this? It looks weird. Yeah, I can do like import with user from with user, and then that's export defaulted. Okay, so I don't find one thing about TypeScript is that TypeScript, I don't know how to freaking run this thing on the whole project, which would be nice. I don't know if this gets kind of thingy, because there might be places where it's actually is complaining about stuff, and I don't know where those places are. But anyway, so remove authentication, choose C, and replace with simple function. So made it a bit simpler, I guess. This function, in theory, can be extracted. I just didn't want to fight too much with what's called this guy, because I need to flip around the user children and all this magic, run the bullshit. So I need to pass user here too, because remember I said eventually the user here will render user, and this is where TypeScript again is very handy, telling you like, hey, I'm not sure what you're trying to pass here, because this guy does not actually accept anything, and it is totally correct because I didn't add any definitions. And this is my user again, and this is one of the few interfaces I actually using which are publicly exposed. So practically almost everything else is internal interfaces, but here I'm exposing this because it's quite a common interface and it's flying all over the place. Kind of, it is essentially my state. Like my state will be a combination of this user and something else. Property user is missing in type. So this is my thing. So it tells me now that, hey, property user is missing because I didn't save the file yet. And now it tells me that, hey, you cannot do this. I'm like, what cannot I do? What do you want from me? Props dot. Yeah. React is king strange. Oh, it's in a test. Okay. So I need to pass a user here. Is logged in. is, oops, let's make false, for example. So now we're making this dependency explicit, and we can make it optional, and we can say, hey, this thing works without if you don't pass it the user by default. But what I can do instead is I can say here, like so if I have a user and I have user data, and then I want to throw I don't know, hello user.name, data.name, for example, and yeah, const user from props. But not all of this is verified. So if I mistype this, if I said datas, it will tell me. So it's very nice that it's verified, I find, because I don't remember how many times I made this stupid errors. What's going on now? Oh yeah, so we need to wrap this into something. Not this. We need to finish wrapping this. JSX element has no corresponding thing. Yeah, because I forgot this. Okay, so it seems to be cool now. That's why I use storybooks, for example, because if I do create a new storybook, sidebar story.tsx, and I don't remember how to write the storybooks, so I usually just look at one of the ones that I wrote before. I mean, look at means I literally copy paste it, and then I look at it, because I don't want to do that. So, blah blah blah, we get the sidebar instead of the input. Sidebar, and this crazy helper function, which I probably don't need in this scenario. Can just do the rendering here. So what I do is a sidebar, and then I say user is logged in, and it's false. And it doesn't like something here. I mean, I don't like something either though. Looks quite crazy to me. Oh my god, operator, what? Oh yeah, what am I doing here? Why do I have this? Okay, so what Storybook allows me to do, and if I launch it and hopefully it doesn't crash everything, I might be reaching the limits of my thing. Uh-oh. Okay. It's temporable declare value never used. The action I'm not using either. And anytime. Yes. Storybook. Yeah, Storybook is this weird thing where it kind of runs and then it dies, and it dies like this. In this weird, like, I'm died. And I know there's something Webpack which actually forces Webpack to stop in this situation instead of being like stuck. But this is just an ejected app. So it's create direct app and eject. I didn't want to go too crazy with it. I did not call it right because it's a sidebar. As soon as I save, oh yes, I know what's coming here. So I didn't made any magic here, I just put it like this. So unfortunately, there is a way to require it somehow using the convention thing, and it's a cool story, but I just do it this way. Okay, so this is my sidebar, and I just want to see how it looks like when I have a user. So now I can add another one here. Whoa. So I just do dot add, with user, and then we're gonna give it doing this thing again, sidebar, user is logged in, true now, and now we have some data, and I'm just gonna put the name there for now. Check, let's say. We'll close this guy. What's up? What's up there? Oh yes, so it will ask me to put everything there. So I can't just put like one property because I have said they all required. So let me just took example.com, and then I need to put JWT and the refresh token of 1, 2, 3. And this will all be magically formatted for me. And then now I can see that it says hello Jack. And as you can see, there's actually a problem there because there is an extra thing there. Ta-da! So it helps me to see all of these things without switching back and forth, which can be annoying often. So now I can actually see here. That says hello too. And I don't have a name saved here, which is a problem. I don't know why it has this little thing there. Maybe I... it shouldn't have that thing, but whatever. Oh yeah, it fails. Oh my. Yeah, it has this weirdest freaking error. Whenever I add a file, it gives me this like, oh shit, something went wrong. You tried to add a TSX extension and I don't know how to lint it, and I'm just gonna die. And I'm gonna kill the Webpack server with me. I'm like, cool, but not cool. There is a way to replace it with awesome TypeScript loader instead, and I heard it's better, but honestly, I have spent too much time setting this shit up. Okay, so commit. So add user information to the sidebar. Okay, so now my main why is this login. So like it's kind of very annoying to keep refreshing this thing. So what I want to do is I want to say that my user here with user, this guy actually will do one more thing. It's gonna store the information on local storage. And if we were doing it in fancy Redux, we would need to probably dispatch another action, which is nice. I'm not saying it's not, so we can create another local storage reducer, and only the local storage reducer will know about local storage. It is nice, however, at the same time, I can tell you that this is pain in the ass to test, and that Redux is easier to test. I can definitely say that. And I was pondering on just doing this, to be honest. I can make it public and just force it to re-render, and then I don't need to do all this handle stuff. But then I'm not really doing it the same way that React would do. And I actually, where is this? Blah blah blah. Maybe if I make it in my usual way, and then I put that as a function, it probably works. So I have this way where I kind of render things. Oops. So I take this guy and I put it in the render function and pass the props there. And I made a mistake once to trying to make this props to do the thing, and now I'm like, no, screw it. I'm gonna use any here. Because here, TypeScript does not help, it gets in your way. So then I have my default props, which is my render function, which is just function, and so render function actually is not going to be just function. I'm going to make this guy instead. Default props is render, and this is the render function. And so I have this change user thing here, you see. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this change user from here and put it here, and then kind of do something weird where I'm returning this as part of another object. And then this object will have this change user method, which is probably going to shadow and it's not going to like it. And I'm going to return the change user here. And hopefully it's not going to call itself, which it might, but because I'm not doing this, it won't. But I would rather call it something else. I'm going to call it on user change callback, just so that it doesn't get freaking confusing. On user change callback. And we need to pass the user there. And now this becomes a bit easier because I can also encapsulate all that other crap. Like, let's say I need unknown and I need to call update. Okay, I'm just going to call this al.update. So now instead of using this, I'm just going to call const component calls render, and I call the, and by default this is nothing. Oh yeah, so default props. So the props become default props plus props. We're not doing this anymore. We are doing, I don't know what I'm doing. Oh yeah, saving user to local storage. So I can call component to change user, and then data. Okay, now it's asking me like, hey man, you're forgetting some other stuff. I'm actually, this is not a user, I just realized. This is like a smaller interface, and I'm gonna say that right here, I wanted it to pass, and I need to check, make sure that I'm not actually using iUser, because this is not a user interface. And if it is using iUser, it's not the right interface. So this y will give me the name, let's say, which is a string, and then it will give me, yeah, like that should be enough, I think. And that's a tricky part, so I can just use EL here if I want, but I find that abstracting it makes it a bit easier. So I create this guy, something like, and because we're getting the text, I think, get, let's say child, I don't know, whatever the heck we're rendering there, h1 register. Child text, and this just returns this el.find h1.text. Yeah, return. And so instead of all this crap, we can just say whoop child text, and hopefully reach this use What is this scheduler thing? Ah, line 43 has an error. Okay, the error is not on line 43, I'm pretty sure. It's here. Oh, interesting. So did I not pass the render func? Yeah. Here we go.